So section 1.6 equation and inequalities involving absolute value. Okay, so we have before we start equation and the inequality, let's define what is absolute value. Okay, so we have absolute value of x. Okay, and this absolute value of x, okay, this absolute value of x is equals to the same number, okay, x, if our x is greater than or equals to 0. You have a number, okay, which is greater than or 0, and if you are trying to find the absolute value of a positive number, its absolute value is the same number. Okay, the example, so absolute value of 5 is positive number, 5 is greater than 0, and the absolute value of 5 is same number, which is 5. Okay, and the absolute value of x is negative x if the number x is less than 0. So you have a number which is less than 0. Those are negative number. Okay, and if you are trying to find the absolute value of negative number, its absolute value is negative of that negative number. Okay, and negative of negative number we get positive, right? For example, if we have absolute value of negative 4, okay, now this is our x is negative 4. From definition, this is negative of negative 4, and we end up getting positive 4. Okay, like in general, the absolute value of every number is positive, we end up getting a positive. Okay, but this is the definition. So if you have a number which is greater than or equal to 0, absolute value of x is same number x. Okay, but if a number is less than 0, then we get absolute value of x is equals to negative of that negative number, and negative of a negative number is we have the positive. Okay, so this is about the absolute value. And the absolute value, it also give us the distance of a number from a 0. Okay, so if we have, now let's find what does this mean. So what does it mean by absolute value of negative 4 is positive 4? Let's try to find the meaning of this one here. Any guess? What does it mean by the absolute value of negative 4 is 4? Yes.
Is the distance in the number line?
Yes, the distance of negative 4 is 4 from 0. Okay, so we have a number line, and we have 0 here, negative 4 here. So absolute value, it gives us the distance of a number from 0. Okay, so this is 0, and we are looking at the distance of this negative 4 from 0. This distance is 4, and distance is always positive. Okay, distance can't be negative, and this is also the reason that our absolute value is always positive. Absolute value, it gives us the distance of a number from 0 on a number line. Okay, all right, so this is about the absolute value. Now if we have a equation, okay, with the absolute value expression, then that is the absolute value equation. So let's say we have absolute value of x equals to a, we have an absolute value expression, and we have the equal to sign. So this is the equation. Now we need to solve this equation, and in order to get rid of absolute value, okay, we get two different equation. One equation is, okay, let me write down here. So if we have absolute value of x equals to a, this is the equation. If we have absolute value of equation, we need to get rid of this absolute value sign. Okay, and in order to get rid of this absolute value of sign, we have to have two different equations. So this equation is equivalent to, you write down whatever you have inside the absolute value. We have x equals to positive of right, so we have positive a, or you write down whatever you have inside the absolute value, x equals to negative of right, which is negative a. You have an absolute value equation. Okay, and if in order to get rid of the absolute value equation, you will get two different equation. Okay, and in order to write down the equation, you are writing whatever you have inside the absolute value equals to positive of right side. Okay, or you're gonna write down whatever you have inside the absolute value equals to negative of whatever you have on the right side. So one time positive, other time negative of right side. and this is how we can get rid of absolute value sign. Okay, and let's use this definition to solve our absolute value equation here. So we have three different equation. Okay, let me erase this one. So at first we have absolute value of 2x minus 3 equals to 7. So this is what we have. This is the equation we need to solve. We need to find the value of x. Okay, and in order to find the value of x, we have to get rid of absolute value sign. Okay, and we get two equation. So you write down whatever you have inside the absolute value. Okay, we have 2x minus 3. 2x minus 3 equals to positive of whatever you have on the right side. We have 7. Okay, or now you write down whatever you have on the inside the absolute value again. Okay, write down the same expression. 2x minus 3 equals to negative of whatever you have on the right side, which is negative 7. So you are writing the same expression which you have inside the absolute value equals to positive, or same expression equals to negative of right side. Now these two are linear equation, right? And we know how to solve linear equation. So let's go ahead and solve these two linear equation. So we add 3 on both sides for the first equation. We do the same thing for a second equation. So negative 3, positive 3, 0. So we have 2x equals to 7 plus 3, that is 10. So negative 3, positive 3, 0. So we have 2x equals to negative 7 plus 3, that is negative 4. We need to get rid of 2. So we divide by 2. Make sure you divide both sides. And we use 2 to divide both sides of the next equation. 2x divided by 2, that is x, equals to 10 divided by 2, 5, or x equals to negative 2. So these two are the solution for this absolute value equation. So when you have an absolute value equation, there is always chance to have two equation, okay? Sorry, two solution. Not every time, sometimes you may not have a two solution, okay? But you're gonna get the two equation, okay? Once you get rid of the absolute value sign, you get the two equation, and you have to solve both of those equation, okay? Now let's see in number B, it's the same way. So we have absolute value of x equals to negative 3. Now what will be the solution for this one? Okay, now let's go back to our definition. Now what does it mean by absolute value of x is equals to negative 3? So x has a distance, okay, the distance of x from 0 is negative 3. The distance of x is any number, okay, distance of this x from 0 on a number line is negative 3. Does that make sense? Your distance is negative 3. It's not possible, okay? We can't find any number whose distance from 0 is negative 3. There is no any number, right, whose distance from 0 on the number line is negative, because distance can't be negative. It has to be a positive. So we can't use the definition. It means it does not have any solution. So no solution in this case, okay? So B does not have solution. So it has to be always positive. Absolute value has to be always positive. Then only we can find the solution. So before solving the equation, okay, before using the definition, make sure the absolute value of the expression is positive. If it's negative, every time, no solution. Okay, if the absolute value of the expression is negative, every time, no solution. Okay, now for number C, what can we say? So we have absolute value, negative of absolute value of 3x plus 1 minus 3 equals to negative 8. Now, okay, now what can we use? Does it have a solution or not? If the absolute value of any expression is negative number, then we don't have a solution. Now, what is the absolute value? So we have negative of absolute value of 3x plus 1 minus 3 equals to negative 8. Now from here, can we conclude that the absolute value of 3x plus 1 is negative number? we can't make a conclusion here. Okay, so let's simplify first. Okay, let's find the absolute value of 3x plus 1 equals 2. If it's negative, no solution, but if we have positive, then we're gonna find solution. So let's collect absolute value expression in one side and the remaining on the other side. Okay, so let's get rid of negative 3 by adding 3 on both sides. So we have negative absolute value of 3x plus 1. So this is absolute value of, okay, equals negative 8 plus 3, negative 5. We still have negative in front of absolute value. How do we get rid of negative in front? You divide by negative 1 or multiply by negative 1. Okay, it's the same thing. So let's multiply both sides of this equation by negative 1. Okay, you are multiplying both sides of this equation by negative 1. So we have absolute value of 3x plus 1 equals negative 5 times negative 1. We have positive 5. Now here the absolute value of 3x plus 1 is positive. It means it does have a solution. Okay, so the only condition is that if the absolute value of the expression is negative, then it does not have solution. Okay, you might need to simplify it, okay, to check whether the equation had solution or not. Now using definition, you're gonna write whatever you have inside the absolute value sign. Okay, so we have 3x plus 1 equals to the positive of whatever you have on the right side, which is positive 5, or just repeat the same thing. Just write down everything whatever you have on inside the absolute value. We have 3x plus 1 equals negative of right side, which is negative 5. And most of you, I'm pretty sure most of you will write down this one and you forget about this one. You can't forget the second part. Okay, you can't forget. When you have an absolute value, you always get the two equation and you have to solve those two equations. If it's the equation, if it's the absolute value, you always have two equation. Okay, one is positive of right side and the other is negative of the right side. Okay, now these two are linear. Let's solve this equation. So for the first one, we subtract 1 on both sides, and we do the same thing for the second equation. So negative 1 positive 1 cancel, which is 0. So we have 3x equals to 4, or positive 1 negative 1 cancel, 3x equals to negative 6. We need to get rid of 3, so we divide by 3 on both sides. It's the same number for our next equation. So we have x equals to 4 over 3, or x equals to negative 2, and these two are the solution. So x is 4 over 3 or x is negative 2. So if you have absolute value equation, you always have two equation. Okay, and you have to solve those two equation in order to get this solution for the absolute value equation. Okay, now let's go to the next one. So we have absolute value inequalities. Okay, now if you have an inequality sign, then that's the inequality, right? You have an absolute value expression and you have the inequality. Now here is like definition. Now if absolute value of x is less than a, okay, so if we have absolute value of x less than a, then this is same as x greater than negative a and less than positive a. Okay, so let's consider we have absolute value of x less than 2. Okay, this is same as x greater than negative of this 2, which is negative 2, and less than positive of this number, which is 2. And this is how we can get rid of this absolute value. See, so in the first one we had absolute value, and in order to get rid of absolute value, we're gonna use this definition. Okay, so absolute value of x, if you have a less than, and this is the definition that you're gonna use. Whatever you have inside the absolute value is greater than negative of this number, okay, and less than positive of the same number. This is one definition. Okay, the next one, so the next one here is that if the absolute value of x is greater than a, okay, if the absolute value of x is greater than a, then x is less than negative of a, or x is greater than a. So you're gonna get the two inequality without absolute value sign. So this is how we can get rid of absolute value sign from absolute value inequality. Okay, now let's do some examples here, then you will feel more comfortable here. So these two are the definition that we're going to use. Okay, if you have a less than, okay, one more time, if you have a less than, you're going to use this definition. See, absolute value of x less than. If you have an absolute value of x greater than, then you're going to use these two definition. Now let's go to our example. So here our example is absolute value of x minus 4 is less than or equals to 15. Now which definition do we use? Just let me write down here. Our first definition is, if you have absolute value of x less than a, then this is equivalent to x greater than negative of a less than a. So this is the one definition. If you have absolute value of x greater than a, okay, then our definition is x is less than negative a, or x is greater than a. Okay, so we have x less than negative a, or x is greater than a. Now for example a, which definition do we use, 1 or definition 2? So you are looking for the inequality. If it's less than, then always first definition. If it's greater than, you're gonna use, sorry, okay, this numbering is wrong here. So if the greater than, you're gonna use the second definition. Okay, so we have less than. So see here, so we have less than, so we're gonna use this first definition. Okay, and according to first definition, you write down whatever you have inside absolute value. We have x minus 4. Okay, you write down whatever you have inside absolute value. We have x minus 4. Then greater than, we have greater than, we have equals to, so we're gonna have equals to here. Less, greater than equals to negative of 15, or less than equals to positive of 15. You write down whatever you have inside the absolute value. Okay, then you're gonna have the same inequality. Okay, do not change the inequality. We have less than equals to, so you're gonna have equals to every time. And from the definition, you're gonna have greater than, okay, negative of this 15, which is greater than negative 15, and less than positive 15. So this is, now make sure when you write down this, there is no absolute value. Okay, so there is no absolute value here. It's a difference. This is how we can get rid of absolute value. Okay, now this is the inequality. We need to solve this inequality. We make x alone by itself. X has negative 4, so we need to get rid of negative 4, and for that we add 4, and make sure you are adding both side of your variable. Okay, so you are adding both side. So negative 15, positive 4, that is negative 11. Okay, so negative 4, positive 4, 0. So we have x greater than equals to negative 11 less than equals to 15 plus 4, that is 19. Okay, now you have a number line. So you have negative 11 here, 19 here. So solving means always making your x alone. Okay, so we have x by itself, and if you have x by itself, then you have the solution. Now at negative 11, is it an open circle or a closed circle? Now we check the inequality. Does our inequality have equals to sign? We do have equals to sign, so we use closed circle. If you don't have equals to sign, you're going to use the open circle. Okay, now at 19, our inequality does have equals to sign, right? So we're going to have the closed circle. Closed circle means we're going to use the bracket. Now, where do we find a number which is greater than negative 11 and less than 19. Okay, so let me call this is my part 1, part 2, part 3 for a number line. So in which part do we find a number, okay, do we find a number which is greater than negative 11 and less than 19? In 2, right? So this is our solution. So every number in between these two number are the solution. So we write this in an interval notation. So we have negative 11 bracket because it's a closed circle to 19 bracket. It's a closed circle. Okay, so this is the solution for this absolute value inequality. Okay, the next here we have absolute value of 3s plus 2 is greater than equals to 6. Now which definition do we use? Just let me erase this for a while. First one or second one? We're gonna use the greater, which is second one, okay? We're gonna use this definition. And according to this definition, you write down whatever you have inside the absolute value. We have 3s plus 2, okay? Then less than, we have a equals to, so we're gonna include equals to negative of whatever you have on the right side. We have negative 6, or write down whatever you have inside the absolute value, 3s plus 2, okay? Then greater than, we have a equals to, so we're gonna include equals to positive of right side, which is 6. This is from our definition, okay? Now we solve each of these inequality. So let's solve. Our variable is s, so we need to make s by itself. So we subtract 2 on both sides for the first one. It's the same thing for the second one. So after this we have 3s, positive 2, negative 2 cancel, less than equals to negative 8, or so these two cancel, 3s greater than equals to 6 minus 2, that is 4. We need to get rid of 3, so we divide by 3. Make sure you are dividing both sides. For the next inequality, we do the same thing, dividing by 3. So we have 3s divided by 3s less than equals to negative 8 over 3, or s equal, sorry, not equals to, greater than equals to 4 over 3. We have s by itself, so this is the solution, but we need to write in an interval notation. So let's draw a number line. So let's draw a number line. We have a two number, negative 8 over 3, let's say it's here, negative 8 over 3, and we have 4 over 3, let's say it's over here. Now at negative 8 over 3, do we have an open circle or a closed circle? We have to check the inequality. Does it have a equals to sign? Yes, we do have equal to sign, so we're going to use closed circle. And at 4 over 3, we do have a equals to with the inequality, so we're going to have our closed circle. Now let me call, this is my part 1, this is part 2 of a number line, and part 3. Now where do we find a number? Okay, our number is s. Now where do we find a number which is less than negative 8 over 3? 1, right? So we need a number which is less than negative 8 over 3. So our solution is this one, all the way to the left. And the next solution, we also have the next set of solution. Where do we find a number which is greater than 4 over 3? In part 3, right? So we have this number from 4 over 3 to all the way right. Now let's write interval notation for these two parts. So on the left we have negative infinity, okay, on the right we have positive infinity. So what would be the interval notation for the first part? How do we write the interval notation? Parenthesis from negative infinity to negative 8 over 3. Is it bracket or parenthesis? Bracket, because we have a closed circle. Okay, and for the third part, we have from 4 over 3 to positive infinity. with infinity it's always parenthesis, and at 4/3 we have a closed circle, so we're going to have bracket. Okay, now we have OR. Now what do we use to represent OR? Okay, now let me just draw. Okay, let me write down, and I hope you know. So have you seen this sign? What is that? That's the union. Okay, so if you have a number in first set or second set, this is OR. Okay, so if you have a OR, you're gonna use union. If you have AND, what are you gonna use? You're gonna use intersection. Okay, so we have a OR here. So our solution is this first interval or second interval. So this is our final solution. So if we have a number, any number in the first interval or second interval, then these are the solution for this inequality. Okay, let's do this much for today. Okay, if you have any question